Welcome to the Scrubs Life podcast, a companion podcast to the medical show Scrubs and its recent Hulu reboot. Episode by episode, we watch key scenes, catch some reactions from your favorite experts in the field, and discuss critical themes portrayed in each episode. This week, we're discussing when a doctor becomes a patient and when a doctor doctors a doctor. I'm excited to introduce our guests today, Dr. Susan McDonald and Dr. Payal Patel. I actually would like you guys to introduce yourselves today, given that this is a very, very special episode. So let's start with Dr. McDonald.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Susan McDonald. I am, at the moment, Program Director at Penn State Urology. I'm a reconstructive urologist. But how and why I got invited to be on this particular episode was about 20 months ago, I felt a lump and I went in for a mammogram. And that day I was told it's probably cancer. I said, let's do the biopsy. And I got catapulted from, a high functioning female surgeon to stage 4 cancer patient in 2.5 weeks, which is no time at all psychologically to grasp that concept. And I'm about 20 months into my cancer journey, and I am about to make the leap out of clinical medicine and into less strenuous work that still helps patients, and that's been a big change.
And Dr. Patel.
Hi, guys. So today is my first day back to work after my cancer journey. I am a integrative pediatrician and a coach for women, and I specialize in coaching brown women who have it all but still aren't happy. And the reason I got invited to this podcast is, well, Dr. Bharadwaj was on my podcast, which is super fun, called Brown and Happy. But since then, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And of course, it all happened in the middle of starting my divorce settlement. So there was a lot of stress. And interestingly, my surgeon was like, "Why do you have cancer?" And she's like, "You have your genetics are negative. Everything is negative." And it really made me realize that I've been taking bullets for a very long time and not realizing the long-term effects. And there's a lot of cultural conditioning, and that's where my journey comes in, to being okay with taking bullets, both professionally and personally. And so I just finished, I rang the bell last week. I'm super excited about that. And the way that I went through this journey was deciding that I couldn't control how this happened and why this happened, but I can control how I respond. And I have been in full joy, and inspiration and passion. So, so I'm really grateful that I was asked to do this because it pulled me out of the patient mode and back into the doctor coach mode. So thank you so much.
Well, I am absolutely excited to have both of you strong, accomplished women here with me today. I think we're just going to jump into the first scene that we're going to watch.
I am not leaving your side until we get your results.
JD, would you pray with me?
Wow, first curveball.
Of course.
Cox was never religious, but when you're facing your own mortality, you'll try anything.
Dear God, or who's ever up there, I know I haven't exactly turned to you pretty much ever, but I need you now. So please, Lord, let that chair fold in on JD and quietly suffocate him so that I might have a few moments of peace, if these are in fact my last few moments. Thanks, God.
Go ahead, make your jokes. But I know you're scared. For once, just let me be there for you.
And there it was, his test results. I knew how I wanted this to play out.
Congratulations! You're the 1 millionth person to click on test results. You've won $10,000 and a brand new jet ski.
Oh no, not you, Scram. JD, come on, amigo.
Yes! To the lake!
But that's not how these things go.
Go ahead. But don't sugarcoat it. Because I understand what everything means on there.
And we're going to go to immediately another scene because I think there is a lot to talk about here.
Is my own body attacking itself? It's an autoimmune disease, for God's sake. There's no cure for this. It's a matter of managing the crises that are going to be thrown my way in the bottom of the ninth.
Harry, you know this disease has a high survival rate, especially since we caught it
We're
early.
in the beginning stages of renal failure, JD.
Yeah, but you can slow all that down with aggressive treatment and immunosuppressants. Microscopic polyangiitis can easily go into remission.
Did you really think that this couldn't happen? That just because we're out there taking care of all of them, it would get some kind of karmic immunity, protect us from what's coming for us all?
Yes.
Will you promise me that you'll keep me alive for a very long time? Because I don't want my death to be the thing that makes you cynical.
I promise.
Let me finish. Because I won't be around here to enjoy it. And even in death, I couldn't bear the irony.
All I can hear is that you're going to let me be your doctor.
I'm already tingling from the prospect of our sponge bath there, Agatha. I tried to protect you from this. Everything I had. But I am so scared.
I have a plan. And I don't care if you don't like it. It is the best path forward.
Turk had asked me when I'd stop needing Dr. Cox's approval.
Okay.
It was now. Because now,
And I got you.
he needed me.
So really, really heavy scenes, which is, Scrubs is supposed to be this really happy, kind of feel good comedy series, but it's actually, I've found that the reboot has been incredibly insightful. They've done a marvelous job of really adapting the characters and showing the changes in the medical system from 2001 when it first aired to now. And a slight background for those who may not really understand. The exact character dynamics here is that Dr. Cox, who is now the patient, used to be an attending of JD when JD was an intern. So used to be the doctor in charge of JD and JD's learning. And now JD is now in the position of Dr. Cox, being sort of this internal medicine department chair, talking to residents, teaching residents. And unfortunately, Dr. Cox has an illness, and now JD is sort of Dr. Cox's doctor. I want just initial reactions from Dr. McDonald and Dr. Patel. Why don't Dr. McDonald go first?
I think there's two interesting facets that this brings to mind for me. One is that people have different coping strategies. So when I read my mammogram and I saw BI-RADS 5, right? 95% certainty of malignancy.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, buckle up, let's do this. My husband said, so there's a 5% chance. And those are two different opposite sides, right? And so people have different coping strategies, and Dr. Cox has dark humor, and I love a good funeral joke. I make jokes about my funeral all the time. I love dark humor, and it often is like almost off-putting because what JD does, where he has all this positivity, is what all the people around you do, because it's a bit like being a soldier and someone right next to you gets shot. And it wakes you up to your own mortality forcibly, because everyone shoulder to shoulder with you in medicine is your age. And they look at you as you go down with an illness and they're like, that could be me. And so it's just so random and so unfair. And so I think that's hard for everyone who treats you to grapple with.
Yeah. Dr.
And
Patel.
something I'm going to explore in my book. Little teaser there. All right, Dr. Patel, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, that's funny because I was like, oh, add that to my things that I want to share in my book, which I literally in the back, I have we started working on because I've been writing during this journey. It took me back to the first moments when I got that phone call, when I saw the appointment being made with the nurse practitioner. They said, "We'll let you know in 7 days," and it wasn't even 24 hours later, and they got me on the schedule, so I knew it wasn't gonna be good.
Yeah.
And everything ran through my head because the day before, I was gonna go in just for an ultrasound with mammo, and they're like, "Oh, we need a biopsy." I'm like, "I'm not dumb. I know I can see your faces. I've been in this
Yeah.
a little bit, right?" And in my mindset, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll go there, then I'll go to the gym, gonna have to meet with my lawyers." Like, there was, like, a lot going on because I'm like, "I'm gonna get this done with so I can start the next chapter of my life and just be, like, an official single mom." And when I saw that, I was like, "Okay, how are they gonna call me at 1? The kids get out at 1." You know?
Mhm.
And they had their annual physicals. This was like, of course, right? And they called me earlier, and I was sitting at my altar, and I'm a spiritual person. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I was just praying that when I do have the call, like, I was hoping, "Oh, it's fine. We just want to let you know ahead of time that it was good." And as soon as she called and I just heard that, tears came down because I just thought about all the things that I haven't done yet, that I was just to start doing now. I was gonna live my life. What about my kids? All the things. And I haven't cried like that in a long time. And it took me to like a very deep place. Almost like that thought that came up for me was like, you couldn't spare me.
Mm.
Right? You couldn't spare me. Okay, I made peace with pretty much living in a marriage that was, and I'm talk about this because this led to my cancer, so it connects for me, but, like, I lived in a bad situation for so long, and I thought that I had, like, bad karma taken care of. And
Yeah.
then this happened, and so, when that moment, I just remember that, and then it was interesting because boom, I was already in school pickup, sunglasses on, tears coming out, getting the kids out because we were gonna go to my old office, um, to do their physicals, which happen once a year.
Mm.
And it was just interesting, like, I was watching that and I was like,
Right.
go through this roller coaster of what's gonna happen, and I'm just gonna say the people around you wanna root for you, but I'm so grateful that the people around me were, like, honest and direct, but
Mm.
I love that they calls my cancer the garden variety cancer, because 'cause I'm like, if I'm gonna have it, at least it's something that is familiar, I'm like, "Okay, so it's like the otitis media of the pediatric world. Cool, I'll take it." Like, what can I do? Um,
Yeah.
it shifted something for me, and I honestly, like, in my head, I'm like, "What's important now?"
Yeah.
And that's kinda like I'm like, "I don't need to raise my cortisol over things that, who cares? Just, I don't care what your grades are, I don't care." I'm like, "Just don't hit your brother, like, don't be violent, like, we're good." So there was a roller coaster. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want your guys's thoughts on 2 quotes that we saw that I think really stood out to me. One was in the first scene where Dr. Cox is like, "Tell me the results, don't sugarcoat it, because I know what all those numbers mean," right? Which is very different from, an average patient who did not go to medical school and did not do residency, or is not a healthcare worker. And then 2 is kind of something that Dr. Patel, you touched upon, is this, like, did you think that doing all of this good work in the hospital was some kind of, like, karmic miracle that would shield you from what was inevitable to come? I thought those were some of the most powerful quotes of this entire series, and I want your guys's, like, thoughts on both of those quotes. We can start with Dr. Patel.
So, suffering is inevitable,
Yeah.
right? Like, that comes up to me right away. Of course, everyone sent me so many different, like, quotes and just books and all that stuff, and in my mind, I know that it is, but until it hits home,
Yeah.
like, "Oh," like, it doesn't mean that you filled your quota,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't mean that we're done,
Mm.
right? And how do I wanna show up in the world knowing this information And I joke about this, and I think Susan's gonna laugh about this. I'm like, I have death knocking on my door,
Mm.
right? And I joke about this, but because I'm a little bit funny too, and that's maybe a lot funny. And so I'm like, okay, so that's the truth. But how do I want to show up for the future suffering
Mm.
happen? And part of our suffering is being caught off guard. Right? We suffer more when we think it's not gonna happen and it's, not me and not, and just be like, well, of course. Of course. And to me, it makes total sense that this diagnosis came to a person who has gone through a lot of trauma and stress. So of course my cortisol is up. Of course then in a healthy person who's vegetarian, never had a burger or a beer, okay, so no alcohol, work out multiple times a week and do mental health work on a regular basis, receive it and give, that this happened because you cannot offset the inevitable. So that's kind of what came up for me when, they were like, oh, and I love that my doctors were very direct with me too, because
Mm.
I'm going to give her a shout. Dr. Han, amazing, I call her my Korean goddess, but like she came in during a strike on her day off and I was in the OR in 21 days with everything done. Like she was amazing and she was very direct. And one thing that she did do, which for me is really taps in is, I was in the pre-op, like everyone's like, we've never seen someone so happy and excited to be in pre-op. I'm like, I made it to surgery in a strike. Like all of California was a strike in Kaiser. And I was so joyful. And she said, hey, I know you're joyful, but I just want to ask, do you want me to pray with you?
Mm.
I didn't expect that because I'm like, I'm in like corporate, whatever, it's not gonna happen. And she's like, and what she said was so beautiful. She's like, who do you want me to pray to? Right. And then she asked me and she said, and I pray for your children. I pray for my sister was there, my mom was home. And I was like having a great day until then. And then in that moment, I was like, wow, like, she saw me so deeply, and I'm like, I wish and hope in my practice, and I do ADHD work, it's different, but, like, in my practice, in my coaching practice, I hope that I show up for people the way that she showed up for me that moment. So, that's a little shout out to her, but it's just I'm reliving that moment. I
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that insight. And it's so interesting how there's so many parallels, right? Like the scene where JD, where Dr. Cox is like, "Can you pray with me?" Right, and then all of the ways that we think about karma in this world are really shattered by things that happen like this. And so, Dr. McDonald, I also want your thoughts on those two quotes.
I think doctors are sort of bisected into two groups. Half of
Mm.
us believe we have karmic immunity and it won't happen to you.
Mm.
And so when someone gets sick, and I was actually the second person in my department to have to step out of medicine or have to drastically pull in because of health, um, it half believe it won't happen to them because they've invested so much into this profession and like give till it hurts. And the other half, I'm in that half. I've had enough trauma in my life, enough bad things that like at some point I've gotten so much bad luck that I joke that I was either a serial killer in a past life and this is like my comeuppance, or like a video game, this is the last step, the big boss fight before Nirvana, because like the amount of bad things that have happened over and over. And I know so now I'm going to segue to the other quote. I know with statistical certainty, only 6% of breast cancers are diagnosed initially at stage 4. Even fewer are diagnosed bilaterally, asynchronously. Even fewer are diagnosed in premenopausal women. Like my odds are sub 1%, and I have no family history. And I found out I had BRCA2 in reverse. So one of the things I remember saying when I got the call about the Mets, I was good up until stage 3. I was like, yes, chemo, let's do this. I'll lose all my hair. I'll get a cool punk rock wig. Like, yeah, I'm ready. But the Mets were my undoing. And I remember that call. And that was one of the first things I wrote down. To process, to write for my book, but also just to like live. My mother was an English teacher, and I believe a lot in writing to process. I said, repetitively on that call, I know too much. I know too much. I know too much. Because I had read on the internet that dropped my 5-year survival from 70% to 30%. And even though that's old data that lags behind what's really happening now, it was terrifying. I saw my son in a suit at my funeral in my head. You do know too much. You've seen people die. You've seen healthy, happy people pass away for no reason. Hope this is a really funny story someday instead of a really sad one. And he said, I'm so sorry this happened to you. And I said, somebody had to draw the short straw, you know? And that's just the reality. Somebody has to draw the short straw.
That's really, really profound. I am, just the wealth of like humility it takes, just the reflection, the processing, um, the optimism, but also the way that, we cope with dark humor. That is, it's just so complex and so, um, it's hard. It's hard to do that. And it just shows kind of like all of these. It's not just the battle against the disease, but like all of these other battles with life that both of you have, had to go through in order to kind of really still be true to yourself and say like, yeah, this is still who I am. I think that's really, really profound. And thank you guys so much for sharing and being vulnerable on this podcast. I think this will definitely help a lot of other people who have been or are in your situations. And I think that's really, and with your guys' books as well, please send me all of the links. I'm gonna pub them, and I'm gonna make sure that people are aware when they're gonna come out, and I'm really looking forward to what they say. We're gonna move on to episode 9, where the interaction between JD and Dr. Cox takes a little bit of a comedic turn. So let's take a look.
Do you not respect me as a doctor?
I've been trying to tell you that for 20 years, and you finally get it. I am so very proud of you.
What the hell, man? Why didn't you get those tests?
I'm going to let you in on a little something. If you tap on the wall back there, you will find Kelso's secret stash of porn from the 30s. Have you ever watched a naughty movie set to old-timey piano music?
Nope. Quit being a pain in the ass and tell me what is going on.
Fine. I think the treatment is working and I feel okay right now. If I go ahead and get these tests and they tell me something different, that all goes away.
Listen to me. I truly believe that going into these things with a positive headspace makes a complete difference. You're the one who taught me this. So you need to turn your whole attitude around and go get those tests. And you do respect me as a doctor.
Okay.
Okay to everything I said?
The attitude and the test thing. If I started to respect you, well, I'd have to go ahead and have them drain all the blood out of me because dementia will have set in.
This has been a lovely patient-doctor conference.
Out of my office.
It's actually my office, but we'll save that fight for another time.
Get out.
So it's an interesting relationship, obviously one that's slightly exaggerated, but maybe not even exaggerated. And I want to ask you guys both. Now you've been doctors, likely for other doctors, but also patients as well. Like, what has there ever been any friction with your doctor, or where they recommend something and you're just like, no, I know better? And I know that's like a spicy way of putting it, but I want to start with Dr. McDonald.
Firstly, I think the reason he's saying no is it's a coping strategy. People like bury their head in the sand, and particularly for test results that determine next steps, there's anxiety. That's what we call it. You get like really anxious and nervous about what that's going to show because it's going to dramatically change the direction of your life one way or the other. So some people just don't want to know. Some people want to know it directly. Some people want it like sugar-coated. It's very different and unique for each person. And a good doctor will read you like a book, figure out which one you are. And I am a direct kind of girl, like just shoot straight. Um, and as to the treatment plan, actually, I think for the most part, my doctors are incredibly respectful of my medical knowledge, almost to a fault. Like I have to say, I don't know what that acronym means, or I don't know what those words mean. Like, explain it to me like I'm 5. I don't do what you do. And then they'll give me the articles too. Like my palliative care, I think, printed out the article about the cherry juice so I could read the data myself. They do some very kind, and we have some very respectful shared decision making. But ultimately, I try to defer to them because they're the experts in their field.
When this came up, it's interesting because I could not stop singing the praises of my physicians, my team. And in the beginning, I was very particular that I wanted a female team, and it's because my primary care, who's also like similar age, similar everything. She was my first point person, so that was amazing. And so I do agree that everyone treated me with so much like a colleague and respected that I knew stuff. And also, they know I'm a pediatrician. I do integrative medicine, so it's very different. But they would wait for me to be like, "Wait, I don't know what that is." And they're like, "Well, did you look, and did you look into things that you," I'm like, "No. You just tell me what you were gonna do, and that's what we're gonna do." And when I did, have questions, I'm so grateful in, the idea of community. I am the kind of person when something happens for me, because I have a lot of anxiety, and to process it, I need to be open or else it like destroys me inside. So I was super open and public with my community, friends. I took time with family because there's a lot of heaviness that I can't carry your emotions right now when I'm trying to deal with my own. So I tapped into my doctor community and I asked for help and support. And I asked a lot of questions, and I had clients in my coaching business who were radiation oncologists. I had friends that I would go on Dr. Mom retreats with, so I asked them questions, but at the end of the day, because I have respect for my team, would say, "Hey, what do you think about Rejuvaskin or Dermabond for like?" Because some of my friends were like, "Oh, this is what I use," and they were like, "Okay, yeah, that's totally fine. You can use aloe vera and, that's up to you." So I kind of feel like me being able to advocate for myself and, being able to create a good relationship with my physicians, um, I think I pretty much have gotten the care I wanted, like, what I want, when I want, like, timing wise, like, "What time do you want to radiation?" I'm like, "I have school drop off. I'm a single mom to tween boys. I gotta pick them up." Like, they're like, "We got you. We're gonna do what is best for you." But I had to learn to ask. And so, in my brain, like, I haven't had any kind of, like, experiences. I just know that I'm like, "Well, I had this allergic reaction and I was miserable," but I asked and I figured it out, and no one stopped me. No one said, "Well, we know better." I don't know what they're thinking, behind the scenes, but overall, like, I felt like they were very, loving, and it's nice. I don't know how it's gonna be, but it was okay to be on the receiving end, except for when they call your name out and you have to walk into the I'm like, "Do not call me Dr. Patel," because the team was like, "What do you want us to call you?" And I'm like, "Pile, like a pile of cash." And they're like, "We love it. It's funny," and we just became like, light. It became light and airy to the point like, "What song are we playing today?" And I'm like, "Nirvana." Um, so I haven't had
I think
anything
that's
that I,
really interesting
had
that
bad experience.
I think everyone, or most people, I would say, will do this where it's like either I don't know if it came from, like, you didn't want people to know that you were a doctor, but you just wanted to lean in maybe to the fact that in that moment you were a patient and not a doctor, right?
Oh,
And just being like, "No, I want." It's kind of very interesting how, like, you do have a choice of, like, slipping into this doctor, um, you know, the doctor identity versus, like, now another identity. I mean, we're all just an amalgamation of identities at this point, right? Like, we have different identities
we
that we increase and decrease and shift and change throughout our lives. And one thing that I was told in medical school is that when you're a doctor, you're always on. You're always a doctor. Like it's always, and I know that perception is changing, but I think they said that with this whole like professionalism and idea in mind that like your ethos mostly is to like be helpful to people and help people. And sometimes, like, especially for example, on a flight when you're, called overboard, it's like, oh, is there some doctor? I definitely think it would be taboo if people outwardly were like, no, I actually just sit down and I don't say that I'm a doctor. Um, I think that people still have mixed feelings about that, which kind of comes from this idea of like, oh, when you're a doctor, you're always on. But here is a moment where you are slipping in and out. You are choosing like to actually now I'm not a doctor. I am a patient and I want to identify myself that way because I think that identity is important and it contributes to um, how I will behave as a doctor in the future, probably. So I think that was really profound. What you said right there. We're
I just want to riff on that a little bit and just say I'm
yeah,
in the hospital nearly every day,
yeah.
but I wear different uniforms for each job, right? And the problem is you are you and you are recognizable, and I live in a small town. So um, one day I was in the half of the hospital where I'm a patient and dressed in my, just like jeans and a nice sweater. I still dress up more than I would rather if I'm not in extremis. Sometimes I'm in extremis, but if I'm not in extremis, I do not wear my bummy clothes to the hospital because I know my patients are going to see me. I do a lot of cancer survivorship, so my patients do see me. And I will tell you one time, I was coming out of my oncology visit and I had been on and off medical leave, and a patient stopped me and asked me about an appointment because it had been really hard to get an appointment with me. And I was so overwhelmed in that moment because it was like in my processing like what I'm doing for myself as a patient and like reviewing the visit in my head. And then someone called out, Dr. McDonald. And I was like, what? It was kind of like I wasn't in that persona or that headspace at that moment. It was jarring.
No, that's so important because, what you're saying is like, yes, I'm a patient. This like identity of patient has been given to me, but to my patients, I'm still their doctor. And how do I balance those things? Which is interesting because we are going to get to the next scene that I want to watch.
8 minutes at a time on the toilet, so she never sees me tear up.
Turk did the exact same thing, but I could hear him whimpering.
I need to be strong and invulnerable for her, and you should understand that. It's the same thing you always wanted me to be for you, and while I resent you for it, I don't mind when she does it because on occasion, she lets me have sex with her.
Do you know what's better than sex? Emotional intimacy.
Would you like to say that again out loud?
No, I don't like the way it came out.
So look, next time you see us, just go ahead and act like you're saying this for the first time, and I'll be prepared to be strong.
I will not lie.
How's your thoughts on those scenes? Because the scene touches upon needing to be strong for your loved ones, and I want some of your final thoughts on like how that has been, especially like as a doctor, you're just that's what you're told. Honestly, a lot of the times that you got to be there for your patients, you got to be strong for your patients. Like it comes under this big bucket of professionalism guidelines. But I want your guys' thoughts on that. We can start with Dr. McDonald.
I did not feel the need to be strong. My husband is my person, the person I'm supposed to be able to fall apart to. Notice I said supposed to. But the thing is, his coping mechanism was very different, and he went into shock and was very scared for his wife, for his family, for his future, all of it. It like all got blown up on the same day. And I did know too much. Like I'll make a crack here and say, I knew what was going to happen to my vagina in menopause. I was well aware. I'm a urologist. Like I knew what was going to happen to my libido. I knew all of that stuff. I do sexual medicine. But my husband didn't know what was coming down the pike, right? He didn't see those aspects hitting our marriage. For me, I saw that in tandem with what would happen to my ability to function as a surgeon, my cognition, the fatigue. It all hit at the same time. I even had the thought, like, will I be a surgeon again? Like before I ever went back to work, and started diversifying and doing podcasts from the get-go because I was like, I'm not sure this is going to work out. And it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that, no, I can't do the grind the way I could. Like my body just won't let me, and it's not good for me. I I did shield him. I did a lot. Like, he doesn't tell her the results. I got lots of things that, and you know what though? I asked him at one point, I said, how much do you want to know? You got to tell me. Because, like, we all learn about that culture and the culture. There's a Chinese culture where they don't want to know and they don't tell the patient.
Yeah.
And you want to be respectful, even though I'm the patient and it's my cancer. That's my person. And I want to be respectful of his mental and emotional health. And so if he's not a rip the Band-Aid kind of person, and he's not, I am, but he's not, then doing that to him and being that direct in an already jarring and really harmful emotionally situation is going to just worsen it, especially if it comes from me, his person. So I put on my kid gloves and sort of walked him through cancer. And I was like, okay, this is what's coming. Here we go. And I don't know. I don't know what's right or wrong. I just know that that's how we handled it. And that, yeah, I don't know what Dr. Patel's journey was like.
Yeah. Tell me about that, Dr. Patel.
So it's funny, Susan, because you're like, oh, he's my person. My first thought was, I'm all alone. Literally, my first thought was, I'm all alone. I've been alone. I say this, I was single mom in a marriage. I was waiting to be able to oh, when the time is, safe for my kids to not be with me all the time. So I was already processing that over 10 years. And then I get this diagnosis, and naturally, most people depend on their partners, right? And their spouses and whatever. And in my situation, not only did I not have a person, I live alone, and it has been going on for a year now, but it's peaceful now. But I also had two minors going through hormonal changes at, at the same time, and so I think part of it was like, how do I process this for myself without creating more trauma for my kids beyond the fact that they literally just got used to the idea of two homes, and then this happened. And I have, one of my kids, like he's same personality, anxious, high function anxiety, ADHD, all the things. And so both of them responded very differently. And thank God I have been a big believer in mental health. Like, they've been in therapy for a long time. I love therapy. Like, it is the best. Like, literally, we act like colleagues and cross refer, patients and clients. And they help me teach them that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to not want to talk about it or talk about it. And so they give me a lot of dialogue to use with the kids.
Yeah.
So, which I kind of was like, oh, because in medicine, it's very different. And so they kind of were like, well, honestly, like, your kids are learning at a younger age that life isn't fair and easy, which is going to prepare them for when they're adults and they have to maneuver uncomfortable situations and difficult situations. They can look back on this time. But there was times when I was like, I was gonna say something that's probably not on the podcast. I'm like, you little jerk. Like, that this is your thing. Like, I'm like, how the heck can you say that to me? I'm going to, but I'm like, wait, they're kids. They're not your partners. You don't have one. But I just dropped off my last friend who flew in to help me out last night. And I had friend after friend after friend come in, flying over from all over, medicine, non-medical, people I've known for a long time, very short period of time, like neighbors, every single person showed up to me and took me to my appointment. So I just think it's interesting, like, your first response was like my complete opposite, where I had to be strong, but I found places to be vulnerable in a safe environment.
Yeah. No, thank you so much both for such differing perspectives, because on the one hand we have someone with great sort of partner family support, and then we have Dr. Patel, where you're like, no, actually my partner is definitely not my support. And there's a different way that you handle this kind of information and this kind of relationship with your husband versus your kids, right? And that's a very, very different dynamic. And then it's all about, in the end, like the importance of finding community wherever that may be, like your support system. It may be in the house, outside of the home, with friends, not with and I think that I'm sure there are folks out there who are in the spectrum of situations where people have like all the support in the world to like people who are truly alone. And I hope that this kind of really sheds light on um, what could be and how people can find that support if they need to. Thank you both so much. I think on that note, this was an incredibly insightful discourse on doctoring a doctor and when a doctor becomes a patient and everything in between. Thank you all for listening. That wraps up this episode of the Scrubs Life podcast, the Scrubs companion podcast, and everything healthcare. If you like what you heard, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Amazon, or whichever platform from which you stream your podcast. Share this episode with your friends and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Scrubs Life podcast. And definitely go watch this episode of the new Scrubs Reboot streaming on Hulu. Special thanks to Paul Bogosian for video editing and production and Yunsu Sara Lee for artwork. Till next time.